Section 24 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Marianne Coleman Hipkins. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 3 by Henry Gray. The Abdominal Aorta, Part 1. 5a-2. The Abdominal Aorta, Aorta Abdominalis. The abdominal aorta begins at the aortic hiatus of the diaphragm, in front of the lower border of the body of the last thoracic vertebra, and, descending in front of the vertebral column, ends on the body of the fourth lumbar vertebra, commonly a little to the left of the middle line. Footnote 103. Lord Lister, having accurately examined 30 bodies in order to ascertain the exact point of termination of this vessel, found it either absolutely or almost absolutely mesial in 15, while in 13 it deviated more or less to the left, and in 2 was slightly to the right. System of Surgery, edited by T. Holmes, 2nd edition, verse 652. End of footnote. By dividing into the two common iliac arteries, it diminishes rapidly in size in consequence of the many large branches which it gives off as it lies upon the bodies of the vertebrae. The curve which it describes is convex forward, the summit of the convexity corresponding to the third lumbar vertebra. Relations. The abdominal aorta is covered anteriorly by the lesser omentum and stomach, behind which are the branches of the celiac artery and the celiac plexus. Below these by the lional vein, the pancreas, the left renal vein, the inferior part of the duodenum, the mesentery and aortic plexus. Posteriorly, it is separated from the lumbar vertebrae and intervertebral fibrocartilages by the anterior longitudinal ligament and left lumbar veins. On the right side, it is in relation above with the azygos vein, cisterna chyli, thoracic duct, and the right crus of the diaphragm, the last separating it from the upper part of the inferior vena cava and from the right celiac ganglion. The inferior vena cava is in contact with the aorta below. On the left side are the left crus of the diaphragm, the left celiac ganglion, the ascending part of the duodenum, and some coils of the small intestine. Collateral circulation. The collateral circulation would be carried on by the anastomoses between the internal mammary and the inferior epigastric, by the free communication between the superior and inferior mesenterics, if the ligature were placed between these vessels, or by the anastomosis between the inferior mesenteric and the internal pudendal, when, as is more common, the point of ligature is below the origin of the inferior mesenteric, and possibly by the anastomoses of the lumbar arteries with the branches of the hypogastric. Branches. The branches of the abdominal aorta may be divided into 3 sets: visceral, parietal, and terminal. Visceral branches: celiac, superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric, middle suprarenals, renals, internal spermatics, ovarian in the female. Parietal branches: inferior phrenics, lumbars, middle sacral. Terminal branches: common iliacs. Of the visceral branches, the celiac artery and the superior and inferior mesenteric arteries are unpaired, while the suprarenals, renals, internal spermatics, and ovarian are paired. Of the parietal branches, the inferior phrenics and lumbars are paired, the middle sacral is unpaired, the terminal branches are paired. The celiac artery A. ciliaca, celiac axis, is a short, thick trunk, about 1.25 centimeters in length, which arises from the front of the aorta, just below the aortic hiatus of the diaphragm, and passing nearly horizontally forward, divides into 3 large branches: the left gastric, the hepatic, and the splenic. It occasionally gives off one of the inferior phrenic arteries. Relations. The celiac artery is covered by the lesser omentum. On the right side, it is in relation with the right celiac ganglion and the caudate process of the liver. On the left side, with the left celiac ganglion and the cardiac end of the stomach. Below, it is in relation to the upper border of the pancreas and the lyinal vein. 1. The left gastric artery, A. gastrica sinistra, gastric or coronary artery. The smallest of the 3 branches of the celiac artery passes upward and to the left, posterior to the omental bursa, to the cardiac orifice of the stomach. Here it distributes branches to the esophagus, which anastomose with the aortic esophageal arteries. Others supply the cardiac part of the stomach, anastomosing with branches of the lyinal artery. It then runs from left to right along the lesser curvature of the stomach to the pylorus, between the layers of the lesser omentum. It gives branches to both surfaces of the stomach and anastomoses with the right gastric artery. 2. The hepatic artery, A. hepatica. In the adult is intermediate in size between the left gastric and lyinal. In the fetus, it is the largest of the 3 branches of the celiac artery. It is first directed forward and to the right, to the upper margin of the superior part of the duodenum, forming the lower boundary of the epiploic foramen of Winslow. It then crosses the portal vein anteriorly and ascends between the layers of the lesser omentum and in front of the epiploic foramen to the portal hepatus, where it divides into 2 branches, right and left, which supply the corresponding lobes of the liver, accompanying the ramifications of the portal vein and hepatic ducts. The hepatic artery, in its course along the right border of the lesser omentum, is in relation with the common bile duct and portal vein, the duct lying to the right of the artery and the vein behind. Its branches are right gastric epiploic, gastroduodenal, superior pancreatico-duodenal, cystic. The right gastric artery, A. gastrica dextra, pyloric artery, arises from the hepatic above the pylorus, descends to the pyloric end of the stomach, and passes from right to left along its lesser curvature, supplying it with branches and anastomosing with the left gastric artery. The gastroduodenal artery, A. gastroduodenalis, is a short but large branch which descends near the pylorus, between the superior part of the duodenum and the neck of the pancreas, and divides at the lower border of the duodenum into 2 branches, the right gastric epiploic and the superior pancreatico-duodenal. Previous to its division, it gives off 2 or 3 small branches to the pyloric end of the stomach and to the pancreas. The right gastric epiploic artery, A. gastroepiploica dextra, runs from right to left along the greater curvature of the stomach, between the layers of the greater omentum, anastomosing with the left gastroepiploic branch of the lyinal artery. Except at the pylorus, where it is in contact with the stomach, it lies about a finger's breadth from the greater curvature. This vessel gives off numerous branches, some of which ascend to supply both surfaces of the stomach, while others descend to supply the greater omentum and anastomose with branches of the middle colic. The superior pancreatico-duodenal artery, A. pancreatico-duodenalis superior, descends